Welcome to the Be Well Now podcast. We do not want people to be sad this winter. Seasonal affective disorder is a real thing.
It's
the days
real.
get shorter. We want to give people tips on how to stay well
And today we're going to give you those tips.
in the Be Well Now podcast. I am Nick, the curious patient of Dr. Ron Dummar. Hi, Doc.
Hey, everybody.
What are we doing here today? We got some feedback. Someone said, please tell me who you are and why I should listen to you. And I realized I literally started this podcast with you because I couldn't stop asking you questions as a patient. We want to share that with people. So who are you? What do you have to offer to the world?
I am first and foremost a healer, a student of health, all things healing. I really, truly enjoy studying and learning about healing and all healing modalities. So that's first who I am and what I am. Next, who I am, my background. I'm a chiropractic physician. My emphasis is in internal medicine, nutrition, herbals. I'm also a Chinese medicine doctor. So I've studied, put together a variety of different herbals and nutrients for patients that come in and complain about lung conditions, constipation, thyroid-related disorders, anything under the sun. We do a lot with liver as well. So I've practiced in that form of medicine and in that space for about 16, 17 years now.
I want to get more into your expertise, but we have an Instagram page and YouTube Shorts where we have all these little nuggets from you that showcase all of your knowledge among so many different healing modalities or topics. But I want to get right to tips because we're in wintertime.
Okay.
We're in Utah. I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
That's fine.
I really want to give you something you can use right now.
We want to give you the meat. Absolutely. Yeah. And for me, I love the depth and the nuance behind it. And I love to just dive into it and go, oh my gosh, this is how it works. I was sharing with a business group the other day about honey and about how honey maintains its palatability. It doesn't go bad. Name a food source that doesn't go bad, that doesn't go rancid, all on its own.
You talked about local honey being so nutritious and amazing for you. Like if you were on a island somewhere, the one food, if you could have one food for the rest of your life,
I would eat honey.
But like local,
raw, organic honey. Yep.
We're off
From the
the
bees.
path.
Yeah.
We're off the path again.
I did it on purpose, but the reason that I did that is because to really demonstrate I love to get into the weeds.
You totally
Right?
do.
I do.
There's so many things.
But I do want to give you the tips. So let's start with some tips. One of the first things that we need to do if we're going to prevent ourselves or reduce as much as possible the winter blues, the seasonal blues, right, is get sunshine.
Because it's a light issue in a lot of ways, isn't it?
Yeah, so our body in response to light produces certain enzymes, one of them called SIRT, which is a protein, and it regulates the availability of serotonin in your neural cleft, okay? There's the weeds again. But if you get appropriate amount of sunshine, it actually makes it to where you have a substantial amount of serotonin available, so your nerves and your brain function better.
How much sunshine should I be getting for that to happen? And then the reality is during winter, sometimes you just don't have access to sun.
You don't. You want to be getting at least 25 minutes of non-sunscreen sun exposure every single day, and at least to about 75% of direct skin.
Right, so that's shirtless through the streets is what you're saying.
In the wintertime, preferably, right?
That's a great idea.
And if you can walk uphill to school both ways with bare feet too, that'll be good.
That's what they used to do in Heber back in the old days.
That's not super practical. So certain options that we provide for people or that we suggest to people is there's one product you can look at. It's called a Happy Light. You need a full spectrum light, and the Happy Light will pull out. It's not delivering the UV light, so it's just giving you the full spectrum light without the UV, and it's delivering it at about I think it's 10,000. Don't quote me on that right now, but I think it's the delivery is about 10,000. I forget the units of measurement right now, but that is a very good light that's available. People often, my patients will put it by their desk if they're working at their desk during the winter time, or especially at the transition from fall to winter. That's when people really start to notice it, because we're starting to go from those longer days, light exposure is dipping down, and now we're getting a lot more exposure to dark.
Right, and then you lose an hour.
Exactly.
And that's when I really feel like seasonal affective disorder kicks in. I did a very surface level amount of research that says, the serious clinical SAD, it seems like women are disproportionately affected.
Four times more.
Yeah, but then you get into the winter blues, and then you see a larger swath of the population. So I want to stay on tips and weave in what's happening with SAD.
Yeah.
So maybe tell me what's happening, and then give me another remedy.
So if you look at across the United States, there's actually about a 1% incidence of this occurrence, SAD, in Florida.
No way.
And then if you look at Alaska, there's about a 9% incidence. Okay, so how much sun exposure do they get in Alaska throughout the year? We know that there are times of the year that they actually get full day sun exposure, right? And then there are times of the year that they don't have, maybe it's up for a few hours, right? 2 or 3 hours. So very limited in the rays that they receive from the sun. So yeah, if the further you are away in the northern latitude from the equator, the less rays you get during the wintertime. And so as a result, the pattern seems to fit that more of those people in those northern latitudes seem to be affected by SAD, or seasonal affective disorder.
And you just think about the winter blues, but I was reading somewhere about, it can be tough for people who struggle with addiction. And, you've got the holidays coming up, which can be really sad for people because families are complicated. So light's a big deal. Obviously, nutrition's going to be a big deal. What else have you got for me in terms of, eating right and taking care of myself? And I know we've heard all the cliches before, so give me something good, Doc.
Hey, one of my favorite recommendations to people is if you want your nervous system functioning well, and in fact, this is a big point. We're reading a lot of this right now, like cutting-edge science. And what we're beginning to see is that we think perhaps there are other reasons than just serotonin and melatonin that play into these mood disorders. One of those theories is that possibly there's an inflammatory component, meaning that if I have more inflammatory foods in my diet, if I'm exposed even sometimes to a pathogenic factor that elicits more inflammation in my body, that can go to my brain and to my nerves and cause a disruption in these neurotransmitters and hormones that then in turn makes me experience depressive type state. So what I would say is limit inflammatory foods, limit the carbs, limit the sugars. As things start turning from light to dark, we really need to start improving the amount of vegetable sources, vitamin and mineral sources, and the nutrient-dense foods that we're consuming.
I know you talked about more colorful foods as we get into winter. I got some squash yesterday.
Good.
And I cooked it in the oven.
Great fall.
And it was pretty good. I doused it with salt and pepper and then some nice butter on top. But I was like, I'm going to eat this. I'm going to enjoy it. But I know it has carbs in it. So when you say carbs, what do you mean?
So really, the most important carbs to stay away from are your processed carbs. And to that point, processed foods in general. If it comes in a package, in a bag, in a carton of some sort, and you read the label on it, and especially if you see the label and you don't understand what some of those ingredients are, you don't need to be consuming that food.
In our last podcast, we talked about flu prevention tips, and you said if you're not paying attention to your metabolic health, you're missing out on such an important part of your health. Maybe it's even greater than that. For me, I feel like everything is so connected. Like emotionally, if I don't have connection and love and support and a feeling of I matter and just all those things that people connect, I feel like emotional health is so important for me. But when you say metabolic health, are you talking about the other part of that? Just the fuel you're putting into your body? Obviously, it's all connected.
Yeah, it's where metabolic health becomes emotional health, right? Metabolic health and emotional health meet together. Have you ever had butterflies in your stomach? Mm-hmm. And then because you're nervous, or maybe you really wanted to impress an employer or a companion or a friend, and then you ate something. And how did that sit? Yeah, it doesn't sit very well. In fact, sometimes it decides it wants to come back up, or we develop acid regurg. See, that's how all of a sudden our emotional health becomes physical health, physiological health. So they really do work synergistically together. One is not without the other. We often in science, we like to break things out and put them into microcosm little groups and say, okay, we're going to study just this and study just that, and we're going to pretend that they're completely separate. But in reality, they're not. So we can't divorce physical health from mental health. And in reality, what are our recommendations for mental health? It's to get outside, get some exercise. Well, that's physical health, right? Get some sun, be in the outdoors. Do meditation, meditate. Right? Breathe in and out through your nose. We talked about the importance of producing nitric oxide, the benefit for the cardiovascular system. Do things that are going to be beneficial for you at large, physical and emotional.
They're both so important. Okay, so really trying to avoid carbs, trying to avoid inflammation physically can then manifest in your, obviously, mental health. You talked about getting sunlight. Give me something else. Meditation. So, okay, you've never meditated before. Like, can you give me something right now?
What would I do if I've not meditated before? Let's do this. This is great.
Okay.
If I've not meditated before, how do I start meditating? Because for a lot of people, what I find with patients when I first introduce them to meditation is they think it's silly. You know, it's like, I don't need that, or I don't have time for that. Well, what's something that you can do real quick that you can actually get a benefit from? Well, for just a moment, focus. So just sit back into your chair, put your arms down, roll your shoulders slightly back, drop your shoulders down, and then what I want you to do is I want you to just take a nice, slow, deep breath through your nose. And I want you to listen to it. And then breathe out through your nose. And listen to that breath. And I want you to hear if there's any interruption in the continuity of that breath. Or is it very continuous from in-breath, inhale, and out-breath, exhale? Now what I want you to do as you're listening to that breath is to take your tongue and touch it to the roof of your mouth. This is an acupuncture point on the roof of your mouth that will activate neurology to improve the function of nerve flow and blood flow to your brain. So now touch the tongue to the top of your mouth, and for another breath in and a breath out. And then one more breath in and a breath out, and you're finished.
I feel so good.
So right there.
I feel, no joke, that was really nice.
And
I mean,
how
it
long
did
was
help
that?
to have like a guide.
Maybe 40 seconds.
Do I want to go like the top tip of the tongue, or am I going for the flat all the way to the top?
Push. Yeah, you want to push as much of that tongue up to the roof of the mouth as possible. Some people will have a more pronounced ridge, and if you have more of a pronounced ridge, you can definitely point the tip of that tongue up into that ridge, imagining it's almost like a needle or an acupuncture insertion point.
When's a good time to do this? Because it's just about doing it, and we all know what to do, and we never do it. I'm being a little bit cynical there. When's a good time to try to fit that meditation in to someone's day?
The best time to do it is when you are feeling the stress of the day. The best time to do it before that is when you wake up. Do it to start your day. Hey, it's 30 seconds. I might have a little bit tough time. I'm not sure I want to get out of bed yet. Let's do a little meditation. See if you can fill your cells with better oxygen supply. See if you can get your neurology, your brain, your cortisol levels all functioning together. And then you're ready to go. You get up.
And I think the cortisol is probably a reason, but I sometimes am flooded with anxiety when I start the day because of all the things I know I have to do. And the only time I have a chance to meditate is if I do it right away. Once the day gets started, I know my phone's going to be buzzing, and I'm just going to be more consumed by the stuff that when I wake up I already knew was on the plate. But when you set the foundation just with 30 seconds or a minute or 5 or 10 or whatever, it can really make a difference. So that seems like a smart thing to do.
We talked about a happy light. We've talked about light. There's another product that we really like. It's sauna space. They do red light. So Happy Light's more of a full spectrum. It's like a white light. The sauna space provides more of a red light. The red light will help to activate ATP synthesis in your body. That's the energy produced by your mitochondria and your cells. This will give you more energy, and it will help your body to repair and heal faster.
When do I do a red light versus the happy light?
You know what I do? I'm a big fan of the red light. I don't use the happy light as much or the full spectrum white light because I prefer the warmth and the heat from the red light itself. So what I would say is when to use it. When you're at your desk, you need to work, you need to perform during the day, go ahead and use your white light. It also provides light, right, for you to see. When you have a moment and you're focused maybe a little more on detoxification, not necessarily even just on mood, but you're thinking about detoxification, you're thinking about cellular regeneration and tissue healing and repair, that's when you want to look at red light.
I heard a YouTube video. I often listen to YouTube, and that's why we have the podcast up on YouTube as well as Apple, Spotify, et cetera, and so on and so forth. But there was a guy who said, if you could package exercise into a pill, it is the number one antidepressant in the entire world. Like, you look at the data, and overwhelmingly, if you could put what exercise does for your mental health into a pill, it would be the best-selling drug of all time. What can we do on that front in winter when we feel like sitting inside? We've had a lot of nasty food during the holidays. I mean, good, bad for you, whatever. How do I get active in the wintertime? Especially, we're not just talking about 25-year-old prime of their life humans. We're probably talking about older folks too listening to this, right?
Absolutely.
This is real life. How can people get exercise and feel better?
Well, first, let's start where you are. So where you are at your house, take any activity that you do and slow it down and perform it as slowly as you can. Okay? And I know this sounds super strange, but this is essentially, if you've heard of Tai Chi, Qigong, Tai Chi is very slow movements. Essentially, it's mastering the walk. So how do I master my walk? Well, we're going to use this as an analogy as well for mastering our daily walk of life. Well, how do we master our daily walk of life? Well, we want to be able to slow things down. We want to be able to understand. You think about the Matrix even, right? Where you get into the, it's like everything slows down for a minute, and he's able to perform in incredible ways, right? So if we can just take and slow things down for a bit, physically and emotionally, then we're going to be able to make a lot better decisions, and we're going to be able to move forward in our life in a lot more ideal way. So
I hear responding versus reacting.
Yes.
That's what came to mind for me. That's what I try to do. Instead of sending that text out of anger or like blowing up, it's like, how could I respond instead of react?
Yeah, and I like those words. Because they're very nuanced. They almost have the same meaning, right? But react sounds a lot more aggressive, right? And a lot more knee-jerk than respond. And the other way to look at it too is not just respond, but then to act. To be the action. What action do I want to impact here, right? What act is really coming from me? What act do I want to in place or impart on this relationship? As opposed to just, now I'm going to make a reaction to this action. So really make sure that it's coming from you and your place of wholeness and your place of being, right? Who you are as a true person, full of integrity, and think about the impact you want to have on the world.
I like that. And so I interrupted you earlier because you were talking.
Fine.
It's happened sometimes. You were talking about Tai Chi and mastering the walk of life.
Slowing things down.
Slowing things down. We don't want to be too slow.
No, but you will be completely disabled if you do not slow down. Let me give you an example. I have patients who come into my office all the time. A lot of people hear about core muscles. You have to build your core muscles. Yeah, that's true. You have to have strong core muscles. What's the core? Most people look, oh, well, the core of your abs is what people point to. Well, the core really is like an apple core. It's the muscles that attach to your spine, okay? So you have to have a strong spine, the muscles that attach to your spine, and sure, that envelop the abdomen and the rib cage. Those muscles all need to be strong and secure. Well, what do those muscles do? Those muscles are designed to hold you and to contract for extremely long periods of time. And what happens when they get weak? Our spine shifts. Our spine now is left to move unaffected or unimpeded by the musculature. So now our muscles are weak. They can't stabilize the spine. So the spine shifts. What happens? People show up at my office. They have a blown disc. They're developing degeneration because there's too much friction. They're losing disc height. That's a problem. Where did this begin? I thought I was strong. Well, you were strong. You were strong in that all the ballistic actions and movements that you did were supported, but the problem is you didn't attend to the basic walk of life.
Oh, you're bringing it back. Now I get it.
Okay.
Which is
Essentially, that's great that you can perform that activity, but can you do it to a slow degree? Do you have the full, if I'm going to squat, I'll stand up and then I slowly squat down. Do you know that the majority of adults in our culture, and even the majority of kids like 14 and older, can't perform a proper squat? What happens? Because if
with
you
weights?
see at all, period, free, they can't perform a proper squat. And if you look at a toddler, you look at this toddler, you've all seen them. This toddler, they're standing up, and then they go to squat down to play with a toy. They could stay there for hours, right? They're on their feet still, and they squat down. Their knees are up like this, and it's almost as if their spine is still in the standing erect position. And then they go and stand up and then move over to somewhere else. And then they squat down and they're playing, and then they go back up, okay? That level of control is what we were built with. It's what we came into this world with, and it's what we're designed to perpetuate our life with. But then what happens? How do we lose it? We sit in desks at school all day. We sit in a car. We sit in the couch, and we just lean and plop right back into that. And we basically coddle those muscles so they don't have to perform.
So bring me back around to the walk of life and how that sort of physical metaphor applies to my mental health in wintertime. Slowing down to be sort of fully in spectrum the right way with everything.
Yeah, so you need to be able to perform the basic functions of life as slowly as you can. So what I say to my patients is slow the activities down that you want to do. Going upstairs, let's do it as slowly as you can. Lean onto one side. How does it feel to stand on both of your feet? Then how does it feel to shift your weight to one side to where all of your weight is now on one foot, but you haven't even lifted the other foot off the ground, right? Now what I'm going to do is lift that foot slightly off the ground that has no weight on it. Very slowly lift it up towards that stair. Place the heel onto the floor as I lower it. I'm lowering it onto that step. And then I begin to lean slightly forward because I've got to put my weight on it. All my weight's on this foot. Now I'm transferring my weight. You think about all those little things that we do, and we take it for granted every day because we think that we should just be able to do all these things without taking care of the little things. Well, one of the little things is taking care of yourself. And that's one of the biggest little things that people always forget. And they think that they're a machine. They think that they should just be able to take this pill, take this drink, go faster, go harder, be strong, go big or go home, right? Well, that is not how our bodies function. Our bodies require rest, they require recuperation, and they require constant attention in order to perform at the highest possible levels. And so with the basic walk of life, think about as the seasons are moving from sun, full sun, think of the sun as a burning gaseous bulb, which it is, right? It's burning ball of gas. We have full sun exposure throughout the summer, right? We have these large periods of time where we have all this full sun exposure. What does that mean? It's high activity, abundance of movement. Well, what starts to happen as we move into the fall? It's it's like our whole seasonal environment. Everything's starting to reduce a little bit of activity. So think more internally, I would say, as you go from the fall to the winter. Think about slowing things down a little bit, like by paying attention more to your own health. Okay? We've had a period of time where we've been go, 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 running to this field, running to that field, taking kids over here, hiking in the mountains, camping, fishing, hunting, all sorts of stuff that people have done, right? They've been very active. Well, there's a season of rest as well. But that rest is not without work. It's not without a purpose. It's not without a goal. Okay? I went way off on this. It's a very important point. And what I hope that you take away from this really is just that when we move from fall to winter, it's important for us to slow things down and to take maybe take a stake again of your life. Look at things again and say, okay, I need to kind of bring in all of my animals, bring in all of the vegetables and all the you think about life just generally in nature. We need to be able to just bring life in and hone it and say, okay, these are the things that are most important, and let's focus forward with those.
Focus on what's most important. I love that. I'm trying to get the music back because we're almost at 30 minutes.
Sounds
Doctor,
good to me.
This is the cue to wrap it up from your producer. Do you have anything else for us as we end this podcast?
I think it's been, I did not expect it to go where it went, and I think that's been a common one of ours, I guess.
But I love that taking stock of what really matters. Because, again, these are cliches, but that's a good thing to do. It's just, sometimes I think meditation is a good time to be uncomfortable, not want to be there, and then what's my relationship with that? Why am I feeling that? Where do I feel that?
Yes.
Can I take that as my practice, as my batting cage, so that when in life I don't want to sit there on my knees with my kids and I'm like, I'm bored, I'm restless, I want to be doing something else. Can I just be there with them? I don't know, 1 out of 10 times that works, but 10% happier, as Dan Harris says in his book about meditation, which is pretty awesome if you haven't read it.
It's time to read it.
It's time to read it. It's time to be well now.
Namaste.
Namaste.